Hi, Peter Boolkah here, and welcome to today's edition of The Transition Guy. Now, joining me today in the studio is Bryan Clayton. He's CEO and founder of GreenPal. Welcome, Bryan.
Peter, thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to today's topic because it's all around marketing. And I suppose one of the things that I've learned very early on, when I first became a sort of CEO of my own business, I very much was a business coach that did a little bit of marketing. And my fortunes changed when I decided to become a marketeer that offered coaching. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think one of the traps that a lot of business owners fall into, a lot of founders fall into, is they start the business, they start the product or the service, they do all the hard work on that, and at the end they sprinkle a little bit of marketing on top. And to me, in my experience, that's a kind of a recipe for disaster, because that's not the way it works. The marketing and the growth have to be baked into the company from the ground up, into the DNA of the business, into what the business does, almost as a core competency of the business. You kind of have to be good at your product and service. You have to innovate there, but you also have to innovate on growth. You have to innovate on, how am I going to get the word out? How am I going to market this thing? How am I going to distribute this thing? How am I going to get it into the hands of the people that want it? And that could go for anything from a restaurant to a bakery to a new tech startup to a new SaaS product. It almost doesn't matter what kind of business you're doing. Marketing is going to have to be one of the core competencies of the business, and one of the hats that the founder, that the CEO wears. You know, if the founder is a natural born marketer, studies copywriting, really listens to their customers and figures out what their customers want, really tries to dig into the business and figure out how to solve those problems for the customers, and then reinforce that into the marketing of the product, that is a recipe for success. What usually doesn't work is the founder will work in the business for a period of time and then hire an external marketer, and hopefully they can get them some customers. That usually doesn't work out.
Yeah, and they'll get a couple of agencies that have absolutely no idea. I mean, they end up spending a fortune.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I mean, I probably have been guilty of that myself in the past, where I've hired a couple of agencies, not taken ownership over my marketing.
Right.
I've been, and I suppose I have been what you would call probably the lazy marketer.
Yeah, it's seductive to think you can do that. You know, it's alluring to think, well, you know, I can just pay this market agency $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 a month, and they'll handle it. And maybe they'll do something with that money, but really and truly, that talent and those resources need to be on the inside of the business. And so you might say, well, I'm just a one or two man shop. I can't afford a full-time marketer. You as the founder, you're going to have to learn how to become a decent marketer, a decent copywriter. You're going to have to figure out what channels are working in your business, just enough to where you can then begin to delegate some of these things over time. But in the early days, you're going to have to take on these things yourself as kind of your acumen.
Do you think that's the case now? It hasn't really always been the case, but do you think with digital marketing and the complexities around marketing these days, that's why founders need to be more involved? Because back in the early days, I remember in the 80s and 90s, you could get away with putting an ad in something like the Yellow Pages, a couple of newspaper ads, and that was about as complex as your marketing ever got.
Yeah.
It seems like today it's just like a huge minefield.
It's a really good point. It's like today it's more complex, but there's more opportunity. There's more crisp ways to meet your customer where they're at and to solve their problem than ever before. So on the one hand, yes, it is more complex, but on the other hand, we can finally close the loop and understand, okay, if I spend 10,000 this month, I can get 20,000 back out. And that's how you build a successful business. And you can't really just delegate that without doing it in-house first. And you almost have to have this growth engine at the core of the business where you can make money, reinvest money into that engine, make more money. Not make money and let me just spray and pray and hope that, you know, these things we did in our marketing initiatives are actually going to give us ROI, and like hope as a strategy usually is a failing strategy. So it's whatever it is you're doing, that's the core competency of the business, and then the growth and marketing of the business at the same time. You have to do both.
Yeah, what's quite interesting, what I'm seeing people is I see people spread themselves extremely thin across all channels.
Right.
And they don't really get any penetration on any. They make the assumption that their customer hangs out everywhere.
Yeah,
And they
yeah, and
don't.
maybe, and hey, maybe they do hang out everywhere. If even if they did, you're not going to reach them everywhere. You're exactly right. In my experience, you have to double down and lean in on one channel, maybe two, but it's usually just one channel that you're like the best at, and that could be for if you have a fashion product, it could be Instagram stories. You just make beautiful Instagram stories, or it could be, if you're like, for my business, GreenPal is the Uber for lawn care, and we invest heavily in local search engine optimization. We create great content around local lawn care services that people can then hire them off the shelf with our app. And we've spent a decade just in organic search. That's how we get more than half of our users. So to your point, especially in the early days, you're going to go all in on one channel, and that's how you're going to succeed in that channel.
And I think you said something really important now, that actually it's about creating content. And before, people didn't necessarily need to create that much content. I think that's where the challenge is. We've moved. I mean, what people expect in terms of great content has changed. I mean, it's now very much video centric.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people do not want to do video. They haven't trained to do video, and they're still using old form like articles, which in all fairness, if you're publishing articles on a sort of platform like LinkedIn, articles are dead. No one reads articles anymore.
That's right. It's like almost every business, small, medium, and large, at a certain point is a media business, and is going to have to think like a media business. And it doesn't matter if you have a hair salon. To your point, you should be taking videos of before and afters and transformations and different things you're doing, and you should be putting that out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And it doesn't matter if you're a remodeling service, same thing, or a pool company, or if you're a company like ours, like a GreenPal, traditionally like a completely tech or forward business, we still are going into the real world and getting that content and resurfacing it on our social media channels, on our website, so people can consume that and kind of get a taste for what it is we do and how we can solve their problem, make their life better through content, through media. Every business to some degree is going to have to think like a media business.
No, absolutely. And what's quite interesting. So, I mean, I made a bit of a diversion a couple of years ago where I decided I I actually own my own marketing. I drive my marketing, but I bring in channel experts to drive the strategy on that particular channel.
That's right. I've found the same thing too. It's like you go horizontal where you are doing a little bit everywhere, and just enough to be dangerous everywhere. But then you bring in a real specific expert to help you with your Google AdWords or your Facebook ads or your Instagram story ads or whatever it is that they spend 50 hours a week just in that one channel. And I have found that you're much better off to just hire an expert like that has the experience and the track record, and pay them for however many hours you can afford them, whether it may be 1 hour a week, 5 hours a week, 5 hours a month, rather than hiring somebody who's a newbie who doesn't know what they're doing for $15 or $20 an hour for 40 hours a week. They're not moving the needle on anything. And so you're wasting your money. So you're better off hiring the person that makes $100, $200, $300 an hour for however many hours you can, rather than somebody who stinks for a full week. I've learned that lesson the hard way a few times over the years.
Yeah, but people keep making that mistake. People keep on bringing these new apprentices. And let's be honest, I mean, you're the person that ends up training them.
Yeah,
And if you don't know nothing about marketing, you're training them nothing.
right.
And then you're trying to fix all the screw ups that they made.
Yep. And then you get the sunk cost fallacy where you hold on to them too long, and it's just a waste of everybody's time. And so you might think, we might say, well then why do people employ people just graduating school or interns? If you have a huge organization and a big machine, and you have a proven system, and you can plug bodies into certain parts of that system, that's where it works. But if you're a small company, 5, 10, 20, 50 people, you really don't have the luxury of people just spinning their wheels within your organization. You have to hire experts to execute at a high level and let that inform everything else you're doing.
You're right. And you'll pay for it one way or the other.
That's right. Yeah,
So
you'll pay for it with the opportunity cost of not getting anywhere for
Yeah,
a year
no,
or
that's
two
true.
in flat sales.
And I can't begin to tell you the amount of people that I've come across that have said, I've done that, didn't work, done that didn't work, done that didn't work, and actually haven't been marketing. I mean, the last 18 months during the pandemic, so many businesses just cut their marketing spend. It was absolutely crazy.
It was a good time to try to lean into some of this stuff, you know, and it was a good time to take your business down to the studs and rebuild it from the inside out, not just sit there and try to wait it out. You know, a lot of times these crises, they're going to come and go as a business owner, and you have to look at them like they're happening to you, not happening to you, they're happening for you. They're happening for you as an opportunity to rebuild your business, to take your business down to the core and figure out what is working with my marketing and rebuild it from the inside out. You know, and I've gone through a few in 22 years of business. The '08 crisis for us was really, really hard. And looking back 10 years, 15 years later, I'm glad that happened. My business was better for it. Me as a founder, me as an entrepreneur, I was sharper and better for it. So these things are going to come and go, and you kind of have to use them as opportunities.
And what's quite interesting, the businesses that went through '08, '09, it's amazing how they still do the same mistakes again.
Yeah.
Now. It's
yeah,
like,
if it didn't kill them.
Come on. Okay, so I mean, people tuning in to this episode, they're going to be thinking, okay, this is quite overwhelming. Where do I start? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, in business, when you're trying to tackle stuff like this, you kind of have to have this big goal. So you might say, well, I want to get to $5-10 million a year in revenue, and that's, you got to hold that in your head, and then you got to think and act very, very small. So you got to have both. And so business is full of all kinds of interesting dichotomies like that. You know, do I listen to the customer and all their feedback, or I just kind of like Henry Ford, if I had built them they'd have asked for a better horse, you know, like what do you do? And so you kind of have to hold both of these in your head at the same time. Big goal, think, act small. So if you're listening to this, you have 5 employees and you're doing $750,000 a year in sales or whatever, and you're stuck, you know, it's like, what do? You have to allocate time to work on the business and not in the business. So everything you're probably doing Monday through Friday is just trying to hold this little business together, and you don't have any time that you're spending working on the business. So you might not want to hear this, but you're probably gonna have to come in on a Saturday or a Sunday and just work 3 or 4 hours on your marketing system. Where did all the customers come from this week? Okay, how many customers came in? Okay, how many did we close? Okay, and the ones that closed, what was the profit margin? Okay, and in those, how long do they stick around, and how long do we hold on to them for a year or two? And what is the lifetime value of these customers? And once I know that, then I can start to reallocate some of that money back into other marketing initiatives. Well, I don't know that Facebook ads are going to work for me, but I'm going to try it for 3 months. And you start running these tests to figure out what channel can work for you. The other thing is to be decently good at this stuff, your living room is going to have to become a classroom. Your car is going to have to become a mobile classroom. You're going to have to allocate an hour or 2 hours a day to listen to podcasts like this one, to go to YouTube University and just consume every piece of content you can on how this stuff works. And if you do that for a year, then next thing you know is like, hey, I'm a pretty good marketer on top of all these other things, and I can drive the marketing initiatives. If you're not willing to do that, it's going to be hard to see the success.
Yeah, and I think too many people focus on the sales element of the process without the marketing, and actually marketing precedes sales. And you know,
Right.
if you've got no leads coming through, you can be the best salesperson, you're selling to yourself.
That's right. Yeah, you really have to focus on, you know, like if you want to study a company that's crushed this strategy, it's HubSpot, which is, you know, small medium business operating system software, and they've done over the last decade, they've really figured out kind of that content as an inbound to then tee up the sales team and how those two work in tandem. If you study everything HubSpot has done, and you have a sales team, might be one salesperson or 5, and then how do you leverage content to like tee those guys up or gals? You know, that's you know, a lot of this stuff's already been figured out for you, and you can fast follow these other strategies.
And the thing is, like with HubSpot, by the time you come to HubSpot, you're not having to sell to them. They're there to buy. You're taking the order.
Right.
Because
right.
the content and the marketing's done its job. It's done
That's
the sales
right.
job.
That's right. No salesperson at HubSpot is making cold calls. It's a warm lead every time, because they've leveraged a sea of content to warm that person up and kind of like educate them along the way. It's a brilliant execution of the strategy. Like, am I suggesting that a $1 million business go execute at that level? No. But what I am saying is, like, here's a HubSpot strategy. Here's you need to move like here. You know, you need to like close the gap.
But HubSpot was never just here.
No.
It was where everybody else was.
That's right.
It started really small. And I think that's the parallel people need to draw.
Everything that's huge starts very small.
I think there's some fantastic stuff for our sort of listeners to sort of get stuck into. Is there any final comments you would sort of say on marketing? Any parting shots?
Yeah, a lot of times as a business owner, you're wearing all these hats: legal, HR, operations, sales, marketing. And a lot of times as the entrepreneur, it's your job to be a capital allocator. So money comes in, you allocate it back out. And that might sound like a fancy term, but even if you're only doing 100K a year, you're a capital allocator to a degree, because money's coming in and some kind of little bit of profit, and then you're reinvesting that. And if you can think like a capital allocator and say, my job is to make profit, take profit, reinvest it to make more profit. And what is the growth engine at the core of this business that I can invest money into and get money back out? And I just need to focus on making that core engine. It can really get you from $1 million to 3 to 5 million to 10 million and beyond. That's kind of how great businesses are built.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bryan. Now, if people want more information about you, where do they go?
Anybody in the United States listening to this that doesn't want to cut their grass, life's too short to mow your own yard, download GreenPal in the App Store or Play Store, and you'll get hooked up with a great lawn mowing service. Anybody who wants to reach me, I actually, to our point earlier, I throw all of my weight in one social media channel, and that's Instagram. So anybody who wants to hit me up on Instagram, Bryan M. Clayton, and drop me a DM there.
Brilliant. Thank you again, Bryan. Now, if anything has resonated with you, you want a bit more information, reach out to boolkah.com and get in touch. If you love today's episode, please make sure you share it with others so they also can benefit from the great stuff Bryan shared. Please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And most importantly, remember, failing to learn is learning to fail. So please stay safe. And once again, Bryan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Peter. I enjoyed it.